Hello, hi again. I'm rather enjoying doing these Facebook Lives. So tonight I'm going to be talking about food cravings. In case you don't know me, I'm Sophie and I'm a nutritional therapist with a background in traditional Chinese medicine and Western naturopathy. And I wanted to talk about this subject, food cravings, because it's a subject seriously close to my heart. So I thought what I'd do is start with talking about my experience with food cravings and then kind of maybe sharing it. Might invite you to share and tell us a little bit about your food cravings. So my food cravings, I have had a sweet tooth since I don't know when. I blame it on my mother because her father and her always had the most incredible sweet tooth. I used to watch her sometimes whipping up egg whites with sugar and spooning it into her mouth when I was a child. Maybe she was really premenstrual or something, or she'd put pieces of chocolate on top of digestive biscuits and nibble on those, and it was just extraordinary watching her. Anyway, I adopted this strategy for creating comfort and joy in my life, and so to me there's nothing more ecstatic than putting pieces of chocolate into my mouth and letting them melt and enjoying them. But as we all know, certain foods, if we eat them in excess, can cause us stress. And one of the effects I've had from having a sweet tooth is it just affects me in lots of different ways. It used to make my skin really spotty, still does if I overdo it. More recently, with the perimenopause, from the age of 46, I started getting major kind of migraines. I'm not blaming it entirely on my sweet tooth, but my diet is pretty clean. But the one thing that I can have a tendency to do is to lean on sugar, particularly in the evenings when I sit down, put on my favourite TV programme, grab my cup of herb tea, and then I like nothing more than some bars of dark chocolate. And I'm not talking about one or two squares. You know, if I always admire those people who say, I just have one or two, squares of dark chocolate and that's it. And that is not me. If there's a packet of dark chocolate rice cakes, I'll probably eat the whole lot. So I had to find ways to manage this sweet craving. It's not something that that will just disappear. It's been with me all my life and it is a crutch. So I had to find ways to deal with this and manage this in a loving way. So I'm going to share that with you as we go through this. But before I do that, I want to talk to you about the sort of situation that can happen within the body physically that can lean us towards craving certain foods at certain times. So there's always a physical and an emotional reason why we will crave certain foods at certain times, and it is individual to each of us. So I do recommend, if you have got serious concerns about food cravings and you're finding they're out of control and you're overeating and it's really affecting your health, that you do book in for a private session so that we can really get underneath it. But tonight I want to give you some sort of a bit of an overview of it. So on a physical level, the more dehydrated and acidic we are, the more we affect our blood sugar. And the more we affect our blood sugar and destabilize it, the more we make ourselves vulnerable to having a food craving, to needing something, to crave something to bring our blood sugar back up and make us feel good. And this is because our blood sugar represents a really important part of our health. Blood sugar represents the level of calcium in the blood. And this is absolutely vital for health. You cannot have an unstable blood sugar for long. You'll be forced into needing to eat or drink something quickly to bring it back up. But you don't really want to be doing that. You don't want to be living your life at the mercy of your blood sugar going up and down all through the day, because what happens is you become a slave to whatever you can put in your mouth quick enough. And that doesn't feel healthy. It doesn't feel like you're in control. It can lead to overeating. It can lead to weight gain. It can lead to all sorts of other health issues. So we don't really want that. So it's really important to always be ensuring that our blood sugar is as stable as possible. So how do we ensure that? Well, on a physical level, it's always about hydration. And anybody who listens to my videos, watches my videos, knows I go on and on about water. Hi, Anna. Hi, Joe. Thank you for joining. So, and the reason I go on about water all the time is because we're 70 to 80% fluid. And every single action in the body requires us to have adequate levels of hydration. And in regard to food cravings and this need to have a stable blood sugar, we have got to be well hydrated to keep those calcium levels correct in the blood. So the first step I would always take if a food craving hits is to have a glass of water, because it's quite possible that you've got a little bit dehydrated and acidic, your blood sugar's dropped, and therefore you're craving something to feel better. So have a glass of water first, see if that settles you and you feel okay. If it doesn't, you might need to distract yourself. So you might need to maybe go for a walk, you might want to do an errand, you might want to complete a chore or a task of some kind. You might want to just distract yourself somehow, maybe go for a bath, maybe call a friend, anything that kind of distracts you in that moment. Give yourself about 15 minutes to see if the craving goes away. And this is on the basis that you have actually had a proper meal and you're not starving hungry or anything. So I am talking about you having had a decent meal. Then after 15 minutes, if you still have the craving, you are well within your rights to have whatever it is you're craving, whether that's crisps, whether that's chocolate, whether that's a glass of wine. And I would encourage you to eat or drink it slowly and mindfully and really enjoy it. Don't beat yourself up. If it's becoming a habit where you're doing it every single day, then yeah, maybe you do need to look at that and try some of the other techniques I've just suggested, which is waiting 15 minutes, maybe distracting yourself, maybe having a glass of water. So those are kind of instant things you can do when the food craving hits. But going back to what I was saying earlier, how do we create a lifestyle and a way of life where the food cravings have less of a hold on us? And this is where we have to dig a little bit deeper and get underneath what is happening in our lives, what's our diet like, what's our lifestyle like, what are our stress levels like, what's our environment like, because all of those impact our physical body, and particularly this subject of blood sugar that I'm talking about. And like I said, as soon as blood sugar drops, you become vulnerable to whatever food or drink is available that you're most keen on. It almost weakens your capability to be able to withhold yourself from having that food. Yes, we can also emotionally eat. So of course, we could be sitting there completely full, but still be craving something to satisfy us. And typically that is, it is comfort eating. It is a desperate desire by us to feel good and to kind of nurture the inner child in us and kind of get some comfort from it. So you might want to think to yourself with the particular food craving or drink craving that you have, to just have a think about what is it that it gives you? How does it make you feel? Why are you wanting it? Is it because, it relaxes you? Is it because you feel a certain amount of ecstasy when you put it in your mouth? I certainly do when I have chocolate, when it melts in my mouth. What is it giving you in that moment? And this is something that you would do not when you've actually got the food craving, but maybe at another time. And then think to yourself about things in your life that give you a similarly good feeling, a similarly uplifting feeling or relaxing feeling. And is it possible you could do an overview of your life and kind of see whether your work-life balance, or there's elements of your life that are missing some of that comfort and joy that you're craving in the food, and that you're choosing through the food. Hi, Sally Ann. So that's kind of a little bit of an exercise you can do outside of the time when you've actually got the food craving. But when the food craving hits, you need to think on your toes. And so, repeating myself, but I just think it's so important, is to acknowledge that you've got this food craving. Don't beat yourself up about it. It is what it is. Have a glass of water. Make sure you're fully hydrated so you can bring your blood sugar up. Wait 15 minutes possibly and see if the food craving's still there. If it's still there, then you can indulge in it, but enjoy it and eat it mindfully with no beating yourself up about it. We're well within our rights to eat these things sometimes, but like I said, if we're doing it every day, it does become an issue. The other alternative, apart from distracting yourself as well, which I mentioned before, is to choose something healthier, to not buy stuff that's sitting in your cupboards. I mean, if you've got children and you're treating your children, and having stuff in your cupboard, maybe put those richer foods, those less healthy foods, behind the healthier options. And try and choose the healthy option. But always with this kind of self-inquiry and this kind of self-love and self-kindness around it. It really doesn't help to beat yourself up that you have a food craving. You have a food craving for a very good reason. You have a food craving because your body wants to feel better and it wants a shortcut to feeling better. And what I'm saying to you is, if you use that shortcut too often, if you use that bar of chocolate or that glass of wine too often, you will create more stress ultimately, because it's hard on the system to try to utilize chocolate and wine and all those things if we're having them in excess. So it's really getting underneath what's going on with your system, recognizing that when the blood sugar's dropping, there is a dehydration and acidity in the body that needs addressing. I'm not going to go too much tonight into what you need to do around that, other than a gentle swollen diet is good. Avoiding gluten and dairy typically takes pressure off the system and the hydration system, so your blood sugar will stay more stable. What else will help with that stability? Grazing doesn't really help. When people have a sort of weak blood sugar, they'll tend to graze, and that's often recommended by the medical profession, but it makes you a slave to your blood sugar. So I would actually try to have your 3 healthy meals in the day. Make sure you're well hydrated throughout so that your blood sugar stays nice and stable. If you do need a snack, then grab a piece of fruit or a vegetable in between, rather than going for something really sugary or salty. What else do I need to say about this subject particularly? Those are the key things I'd say. So I think the key things are, can you put some methods in place for when the food craving hits? So can you be extra kind to yourself in that moment and adopt some of the things that I just mentioned before, some techniques to distract yourself, to hydrate, etc. And then looking at the bigger picture, when the food cravings are quite regular, it's really kind of doing a kind of assessment of your life. Hang on, I'm just looking at the internet. It looks really dodgy. Hang on. Poor network connection, it's saying to me. Can you hear me, everybody? Do you want to just comment and say, because I can't seem to put it on 4G and see if that's better. Yeah, that's better. Okay, I hope you can hear me. Sorry, guys. So what was I saying? So you've got the techniques that you can use in the moment that the food cravings hit. But then when you haven't got the food craving, it's taking an assessment of your life. It's looking at the way you're eating, it's looking at your environment, it's looking at your lifestyle, it's looking at your stress, because we use the food and the drink to feel better, both emotionally and physically. And generally the physical the physical state of our bodies is affected by our emotional state. So if we can take care of ourselves emotionally, if we're giving ourselves what we need emotionally, we will tend to make good choices food-wise and drink-wise. But by the same token, life is for enjoying. And so what I tell my clients is do the 80-20. Do a kind of week's plan of what you want to eat. I know it sounds so boring, but planning keeps you on the right road. And it isn't actually boring because it gives you great results. So on a Sunday, I typically look at the week ahead, do a loose framework of what you kind of want to eat, what kind of meals you're going to create with flexibility. So if you're popping out for dinner, or you suddenly have a change of plan, or you don't fancy the food you've organised, you've got another option there that you can go for. And keeping that hydration all through the day. So really looking after your water drinking so your blood sugar's more stable. And obviously there's other aspects to your diet to keep your hydration good, which I'll probably go into another time. So if you're looking at your weekly plan, you're less likely to fall or go for that food craving even when it hits, because you've kept your blood sugar relatively stable, you're in a more controlled, secure place, and then you just eat proper meals. That's what I would also recommend you do, is you have your 2 or 3 good quality meals every day, and you make sure that there's plenty of variety, that you're looking forward to that meal. If you go for that bland meal, you're probably going to crave something afterwards to feel better. Now, if the meal you choose is a really shoddy meal, if it's like, I don't know, chips and a burger, and that's fine, have it 20% of the time, that's absolutely fine. I'm not saying never have these things, because life is for enjoying. But if you're having that, it is kind of more likely that you're going to crave something afterwards, because the damaged fats tend to affect our systems, make us more acidic, drop our blood sugar after the meal, and then we crave the chocolate. Do you see? Whereas if you go for something that is really healthy, where there's half a plate of veg, nice piece of protein in there, little bit of carb like potatoes or rice or whatever, really good decent meal, it's going to raise your blood sugar and it's going to keep it more stable. If you eat chips and burger every night, you're going to affect your blood sugar. It's going to drop, and you'll probably want some chocolate or some ice cream or something afterwards. So everybody who is watching, does anybody have any questions at all? Does anybody want to share what kinds of cravings you have? I've shared obviously my lifelong sweet tooth, which I do battle with. I must say though, when you do this weekly planning, when you really take care of yourself, when you look after your emotional well-being by making sure in your week that you've got activities that you really enjoy, that are nurturing to you, whether that's Epsom salt baths, whether that's swimming in the sea, whether that's hanging out with friends, but you've got a good dose of that in the week, you will tend to not rely on foods to give you that kind of comfort that you might be looking for. So if you can get that balance right, the food cravings might settle down. The more that you are eating in this healthful way, where you're having your sort of 3 healthy meals a day, and your hydration is good, and you're emotionally taking care of yourself, you will find that the cravings become less and less. Admittedly, with the menopause, with any hormonal change, it does mean that you're a little bit on a roller coaster. So you might find that you do get stronger food cravings during this phase. And it's just being conscious of that self-love and self-care, so that you're not stressing your system by giving in to these food cravings too much. But like I said, follow the 80-20 rule. Look at your week. And what I'll do is I'll say, right, I'm going out for dinner that day, or it's the end of the week and I've had a really healthy diet all week. And of course, I'm going to have a delicious chocolate dessert or some chocolate cake or whatever it is I fancy. And I'm going to thoroughly enjoy it. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. There's no such thing as good and bad food. That's what we label it emotionally. But it's recognizing that when our life is out of balance, we may use the food as a crutch. and we may use the food as a crutch because physically we're in that dry, toxic state and we need the sugar burst or the wine or something to give us that boost. But it may also be that emotionally we're feeling really deprived, and we remember how quickly food can make us feel so much better. But of course, you and I know that it gives us that quick fix, and then we end up lower than we were before, and it gradually takes its toll on us when we overdo it. So nobody is giving me any comments about what they suffer with. So I'm probably going to keep this really short and sharp. If you want a personal chat with me, you can schedule a free call by going to fullernutrition.com and just press the contact me button, and you can schedule a free call and we can talk about your food cravings and what you can do about it and what it might be highlighting for you. But the key things are be kind to yourself, be self-loving at all times. There's no need to beat yourself up. Think of some techniques that you can use in the moment that the food craving hits. I've suggested a few already. They work. Well, for me, they work brilliantly. And for my clients, they're loving them too, which is, again, reminding you the glass of water to hydrate and bring your blood sugar back up, the distracting yourself, the avoiding the craving for 15 minutes. And then if you still have it after 15 minutes, indulge, enjoy, have not too much of it, but really eat it mindfully and slowly and thoroughly enjoy it. And off you go. Start again the next day, or start again as the weekly plan has been set out for you. And if you do slip up completely, no judgment, just move on, start again, get on with your week, get on with your day. Beating yourself up has no benefit whatsoever. In fact, it makes things worse. So that's what I would recommend. So yeah, like I say, schedule a call with me if you've got any overwhelming food cravings. They do interfere with our health. They cause weight gain. They can create all sorts of an increase in your toxic load. So you might get more spots, you might get more headaches, you might feel more anxious because it affects the fluids in the body and the hydration. So there's so much you can do to help with food cravings. There's nothing wrong if you get one. It's just that if you're getting them a lot and they're taking control and you feel like you're out of control, then this is the time to address them and know that, first of all, you're not alone. And secondly, there is something you can do about it and you can feel good. Yeah, I hope that helps you. I'm just checking my notes to see if there's anything I've missed out, but I think I've gone quite reasonably deep into it. It's so nice to see you all. Hi, Emily. Hi, Chantal. Lots of love to you all. I hope you're coping well with the first week of February, and your New Year's goals are still kind of working for you. And if they're not, again, don't beat yourself up. You can find a way. Lots of love to you all. Have an amazing weekend ahead. I know we've